4-year-old and who's a 1-year-old.
We are live, so stop talking about stuff. Hey, everybody.
We were live already. We just had a live show.
I'm here with Dave, Doug, and Pretty Fly. How's everybody doing out there? We'll say hello in a minute, but I hope you did watch the first episode of DC Watch from the beginning. Why? For a couple of reasons. The first reason is Bruno insisted to be part of this thing. So he's in the first couple of minutes of it. And the second thing is, you know, Lenny, who wrote Bruno's skit and also kind of produced the whole thing, put together a really great opening that I just like to watch on loop all the time.
I will say that I wrote it, but some of the best lines were improvised by
I did improvise
Joe and Dave.
You know, the funny thing about it is because people say, I just get into like a character, and the stuff just comes out of me. I don't know where it came from because I was nothing like that.
Joe,
you know,
I googled like Brooklyn sayings and like to make it sound a thing, but I just gave up. So I'm glad you stepped up and filled that void with.
I grew up in the West Village though, so we were a little bit more snooty over there. Let's see who's here with us.
New York to us West Coasters.
Okay. Oh, you won't make the live. Well, boy, thanks for stopping by anyway. All right. So what do we have here? Phil. Phil is here, and here's the man now. Chris, we did dedicate the whole thing to you. We're hoping that maybe in a future DC Watch, we can get you before the camera. And I'm here to help get that to happen. All right?
Yeah.
All right, we have Steve. How you doing, Steve? Steve White. And let's see, anybody else here? You said Phil Tessie. Adam is here too.
Yeah.
How you doing, Adam? All right.
Thank you, Adam.
I think we've caught up there. So I'll just start by saying that even though we showed this tonight, we recorded that show in early September. I only say that not to pat ourselves on the back, but I'm going to do that, but that we really hit a lot of things on the nose or hammer on the nail or whatever you want to call about that. You know, as we were talking about this type of stuff, we kept on coming over there and saying, what do we think is going to happen? How do we think this is going to work out? Now, it took us a while because you see there was a lot of production work here. It took us a while to get the whole thing together so we could put it out there.
It's like, what's taking forever, Lenny?
You know, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I think we did a pretty good job prognosticating. And even now, like, I think, Dave, you did indicate that we also indicated why things should happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I really thought we kind of dug into that a little bit. And not to pat ourselves on the back, but, you know, I'm like, did DC see this? And they're, you know, we're the new Kevin Feige for DC.
Well, did you see what Pretty Fly did? He put it on a thumb drive.
Threw it over.
the.
I passed by Warner Brothers every
What
day.
is this? It's genius.
I mean, that was the thing to do, right? That was the thing to do. So we get that in there. Yeah. So anyway, so we've now heard some things are going to happen, right? And I mean, to me, I haven't seen anything from Warner Brothers. Maybe you guys have that says, yeah, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. What I've seen are reports by some of the, I don't know if you want to call them talking heads, both in media, you know, on YouTube and on media, that, well, we know that Cavill makes an appearance as Superman in the post-credit scene in Black Adam, right?
What?
We've heard that potentially the Wonder Woman movie is going to be kind of a trilogy, a Trinity movie. That's
part of a trilogy,
I think. And I think that was there another was it Shazam where they said that Cavill may show up as well, or was there another one? I can't remember now.
Maybe the Flash,
right?
The Flash. I'm sorry, the Flash. Yeah, there might have come something there. So I mean, that's pretty good, and also that they potentially are working on a Man of Steel 2 movie. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? I mean, I have no reason to think it's not going to happen,
right?
You know? But I'll tell you one thing that happened to me. You know, I'm Italian, so I'm very, very emotional. So somebody forwarded me a very poorly recorded version of the post credit scene. All right. And I have to tell you something. I almost teared up. I mean, I was so happy about that I almost teared up.
Baby.
And even the people cheering, going, "Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes." And when he shows up, I couldn't even hear what he said because people were like clapping and cheering like crazy, you know?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean,
well, he didn't say who he is.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
It was Batmite. Come on.
So yeah, it's Batman. Exactly. Well, Mr. McSimplick, whatever his name is. But anyway, so to me, that having Henry Cavill as Superman was always a no-brainer, you know. So what was going on with WB during this time? You know, was it just the prior organization hated him, or I mean, what was going on?
Yeah, money.
Go ahead, Lenny.
You know, it's like the treatment of and you know, Cavill's like, you know, from how he was treated because of, you know, Justice League, you know, he's kind of like, I want a good deal, you know. So
he seemed to like being Superman more than they seemed to like him being Superman at a certain point in time. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that he's back. You know, I think there were issues with their films along the way, and like I said earlier, I think that's a whole separate video. But I like him in the part. I may not have liked every decision that they made with his Superman, but I like him. And I'm excited that he's maybe coming back. Who knows? So I'm looking forward to it. And I feel the same way, you know, about Ben Affleck as Batman.
Well,
so
but don't forget the. I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll also add that The Witcher happened. And when, you know, someone is on the fence if they want you to play a role because some of the movies you were in weren't well received, even if it had nothing to do with you, and suddenly you're on a show that's one of the biggest on the planet and you have tons of fans, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, maybe we like him better than I remembered. Right. So
but can you imagine if they replaced him with Supergirl? Come on. I mean, it's like The Rock says, he listens to the fans. I mean, in some ways, this was like Snyder Cut in a lot of ways. People have been clamoring for this, just like they clamored for the Snyder Cut. It's almost like, you're right, Dave. We should be the Kevin Feige for DC. The fans should be, you know.
Form of Feige. But I was just gonna say that, you know, even like when they did Justice League, I think Cavill was like down to one movie in his contract. So you know, like they after that, you know, there's some dealing and wheeling that had to be done, you know. And then obviously I don't think Cavill just wants to make his last movie be a cameo for Shazam, you know, in his contract. Right. So I mean, I'm sure if he's gonna come back, I want a good deal, treat me right, make the movies I want, because Cavill does want to be the Superman that everybody knows, you know. He's mentioned that in interviews.
And frankly, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying, like, you know, like, to me, there's a reason why Snyder and Goyer decided to call their movie Man of Steel, because he's not Superman yet. But rest assured, Cavill wants to do the Superman movies, because by the end of the arc, you know, he wants to. I mean, Snyder wants his characters to earn their titles, not just taken for granted because we know them in comics. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So.
Right. I think maybe a several movie arc to get to where they are might not be.
But exactly. That was my next point. But I don't blame fans for not immediately getting that, because look at the MCU. They're totally getting the stuff that they're familiar with, you know.
Yeah. And
then suddenly you have this version of these iconic heroes are like, wait, I don't recognize that hero. You know?
And I'll say this. I mean, I know how people feel about the Whedon cut of the Justice League. I get that. It's a Frankenstein stitched together, two competing visions that doesn't work on a lot of levels. That said, Henry Cavill in that film as Superman when he comes back, and he's in sort of full Superman mode, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. And based on what I recall, he loved that too.
Yeah.
So, you know, say what you want about that film, those moments worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure as bad as the iPhone intro was visually, but you know, I do think they did capture that version of Superman that we're familiar with. You know, having grown up like those kids in the whoever was recording the iPhone footage.
I don't know if I've heard anybody ever say that Cavill was the problem with those movies, because there were problems with those movies, and I don't think, and most of them, it was the casting choices of any of the characters. It was the script and the editing and the,
I mean,
maybe Lex Luthor, but for the most part, I mean, Snyder did a wonderful job casting those films. Gal Gadot was iconic within a minute.
Jason Momoa is great as Aquaman.
Joe and I are very quiet right now.
Listen, I do the 7 days of Gal like every so often on Instagram, and I picked out the next 7, Chris Bigger. I'm waiting a while before I show them. I picked out the next 7. So
and to me, Ben Affleck was the closest thing I've seen to a comic book Batman. I know people worship at the altar of Keaton and Bale, because Keaton was the first and Bale was in the best Batman films. But Ben Affleck is the guy who looked like he stepped out of a comic book to me. And I'm not knocking Keaton or Bale or even Kilmer. I'll knock Clooney. But Affleck is and Clooney might be one of the best actors of all of them. He's a terrible film. But Affleck looked like he was torn from the pages of the Batman comics I grew up reading, and I really appreciated that.
Right. And part of me, I got excited for Affleck when he was announced because of Daredevil,
Okay.
And I think, and I even heard maybe from Kevin Smith saying that, Affleck wanted to be Daredevil because that's the closest thing for him to becoming Batman.
Interesting.
It was Daredevil.
Kevin Smith, when he saw Affleck in the costume, said, "I can't believe they did this costume and you're doing this. This is amazing."
Right off of Lee Bermejo's Knoll book.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, he does.
Some say Jim Lee, but I think very Lee Bermejo.
Chris makes a good point here. The other bats are too small.
Look, yeah, if you want to get real about it, Batman should be like the size of a linebacker.
Yeah.
But Chris, those small Batmans have big cars. Do the math.
Well, you know what? The one thing, when I was a kid, and I'm going to be on Phil Tastic's 7-minute show, I think, on Monday. Yeah, so I can't give away some of the stuff. But one of the things when I watched, the George Reeves like Superman in the 50s as a kid, the amazing thing was that it was Superman, and I watched it in reruns really in the 60s. I didn't watch it when it came out originally, but to me, it was just seeing the embodiment of this character that in the early 60s, especially, I loved. And I think a lot of that with the Marvel movies was, and even some of the TV shows, although on the comic book crowd at the end of the month, we're going to be talking about the Marvel TV shows. Some of it is seeing the characters, but you're right. You need to have a good storyline. So seeing Cavill as Superman in Man of Steel, the first thing you have to do is you have to believe that he's Superman, because there have been others, right? So you have to believe that he's Superman. So that's the first hurdle to overcome. And then the story has to be a good story. And it was the Zod story. We've seen that story before, in different iterations, right? And so the question is, how do you make that different? And I mean, I'm still kind of crazy on the fence with the neck snap. Okay. I have to say, it surprised the friggin' hell out of me. All right.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that what they tried to make it different? I mean, to me, that was kind of a dumb thing to do. I know he was saving other people's lives. He didn't want to do it. You could see he was struggling, but he felt that was the only thing to do. But maybe that was as a new Superman, because part of what Cavill said is he wanted to show the maturation of Clark or Superman through like a number of films. So he can become the Superman that everybody knows and loves. So that's not who he was in the first movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've even kind of indicated, you never saw it on screen, but they sort of indicated in interviews that moment became the reason he won't ever kill again.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, that was essentially it. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned in the chat during the actual show was that the reason why Man of Steel came to have that tone that it has is because they wanted a universe that would go with the Dark Knight series, the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight series. But I figured Nolan couldn't do it or couldn't figure out how to do a Superman, so he hired or suggested Snyder.
Goyer,
so
actually. I think Goyer was the one who pitched him, like, this is a
Okay.
first contact story.
Right.
And Nolan liked it. And ironically, Nolan was dead set against Superman killing Zod.
Okay.
He disagreed with that decision, but he was
But
the
the tone-
producer.
the tone-
It was
the tone
Snyder's
came because of-
film. So
Yeah.
he let him do it. He didn't want to interfere because
Right.
he, as a director, knows what it's like to have,
But-
what it's like to be interfered with.
Now for the snap, not Thanos, but snap that heard around the world was Superman. Yeah, it's not the Superman that we know doing that, but I think, like I said, he's building. He's learning. Like he was barely he was barely learning his powers, let alone fighting someone from his own world who have the same powers and who have fighting abilities way beyond that surpasses his. He's just a farm boy, so that's the best thing that he could come up with at the moment. And the reason why you see that is because he was so remorseful after that. He had that cry. I think if they didn't have that cry, kind of like, and it's kind of echoes Christopher Reeves when Lois died. Then I would be pissed. But I think the fact that he was so remorseful for doing that, like, he had to make a decision, because at that point he finally learned that he was both Kryptonian and an Earthling. So he had to make a choice, So, I mean, I understand the drama behind that. I know, on the surface, it's like that's probably what Wonder Woman do, because in the comics she did the same thing to Maxwell Lord.
Right.
But I mean, that's my take on it. To why I'm not like yay, but I'm like, I get it.
As much as I disagree with the decision, the way they handled it, they made it very understandable and it worked within the story logic. So it wasn't just like, aha, I'll kill you. Yay, I win. That would have been awful.
Because exactly to what Doug was saying, it's not so much Cavill, because I think
they're just,
he's
just an actor.
Story decisions.
For me, throughout the movie, as you got to the middle, whatever, I believed he was Superman. I believed he was more Superman than Clark Kent. Is that crazy? He didn't look right as Clark Kent to me for some reason, but Superman, he looked good.
And they didn't introduce him as the Clark Kent we know from the Daily Planet until the final scene of that film.
Right.
And something else, I want to jump back real quick. I think as good as Henry Cavill is, what's difficult, other arm, Christopher Reeve was so iconic in that role.
Yeah.
And there are other actors who are iconic in these roles, but he was the first when it came to the big screen blockbuster in terms of a superhero, and was just so phenomenal at it. It's tough, and I appreciate they went with a different take, because you don't want to just repeat the same thing. But those are big shoes to fill, and honestly, I do like Reeve will always be my Superman, but I think Cavill brings honor to the Shield. I think he is a worthy Superman. And does a good job with the character.
Yeah, I mean, each rendition of Superman, I mean, Christopher Reeves can't do Superman forever, nor can Cavill. My kids.
Every
Superman
generation needs its own Superman,
someone else,
Batman, and I guess Wonder Woman now.
And what I appreciate about Man of Steel is that it's a modern take. It's like, what if this alien? We just found out that this alien walks among us,
right?
How can we automatically assume that he's going to be on our side?
Right.
He could be Homelander. He could be Homelander, for crying out loud, or the kid from Brightburn. You know, like
Yeah.
like I said previously, like we can't take for granted these characters because we know them from the comics. Like they
Right.
have to exist in the world that they live in the movie.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, as a filmmaker, you know, the mise en scène, we throw that $1 million word, is like whatever happens in the frame. That's the information we have. We shouldn't include what we know about comics or other outside
Right.
source aside from the movie that's in our brain, you know.
Absolutely.
Because from what we see on
It's
the
on
screen.
that screen. Yeah. If it's not up on
Yeah.
the screen, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
At
So
least
You
in
know,
that world.
The Christopher Reeve movies, if you think back to them, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but when I think back to them and I watch them now, they were a little bit more comic booky. Can I say that? Is that such a word?
no, it's not a bad thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they reflected the comic books a little bit more, I think. I mean, look at the way
I think they
look at the way
transformed it, honestly.
Luther was portrayed and his,
He was played for laughs. A lot
he
of
was played for laughs.
Yeah.
And in some ways,
Otisville.
when you take a look at, I mean, the one line that I'll never forget in that one scene that I just love to watch over and over again is kind of the opening scene, you know, when he gets to Metropolis and there's the helicopter and Lois falls and he grabs her and he says, "I've got you, Miss Lane." And she goes, "What?
Who's got you?
You got me. Who's got you?"
Yeah.
I still laugh at that. I think it's so great.
Yeah.
So it had a really good mixture of some laughs, like,
Yeah.
you know, playing some characters for laughs with the seriousness that's there and introducing. So that's why I'm saying it was more comic book like or cartoon like in some ways.
Well,
Man of Steel was not that at all.
Right.
It was a serious movie.
Very serious. Yeah.
Very serious movie. You know,
Well,
and that was kind of the outgrowth of the, I guess, the path that they wanted to take with that was, you know, not to have.
The ironic thing is that Marvel sort of took that template that the Superman the movie set, and they've run with it. Feige has been quoted as saying he has every director who's going to shoot a film for him watch Superman the movie. So that sort of mix of thrills, action, humor, heart that has been sort of a really winning formula for Marvel. It's, you know, it's based on Superman the movie. That's the foundation.
And
yeah, and sorry, Doug.
Sorry,
they've heard enough from you, so go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add one thing: is that as corny as some scenes are and comic-y in the original Superman the movie, especially looking at it, you know, 40 years in the future, Superman was always taken seriously. Clark Kent wasn't, but Superman was. And if there is anything that film did for the MCU and every superhero movie since it, was that it took the hero seriously. And I think that was really important.
Good point.
But yeah, I mean, but I try to imagine like Cavill emulating Christopher Reeves, like, you know, very clumsy and like,
yeah, that wouldn't
nowadays he would stand out. He would actually blow his cover.
Yeah.
You know, like it was like, oops, like, oh, sorry, but like
they needed a modern take.
Yes.
Yeah. But back to Superman, the movie being comic booky, it had to be, because Donner had this big task of like selling the idea that a man could fly, right? Like he had, even the opening of the movie, it was a kid opening action comic, you know, so they had that responsibility to make it very familiar, you know, but you know, like after Man of Steel, then we have
Lenny, I'm going to let you finish, but I now believe that Dave Bratton can fly. So I just want to say it's not that hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah, people think that was all like After Effects in that intro. No, it wasn't. But yeah, but like now we have like this many iteration of Superman, from Smallville to Lois and Clark to Adventures of Superman, the animated series. You know, they had to do something for modern Superman audience now. You know, that had to be different, had to stand out. But yeah. That's
Well,
my,
we said we're going to kind of keep this to maybe more than about a half an hour. So let's move like a little bit over now to what's coming up. I got my tickets. I'm going to watch Black Adam at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Dave, what did you do? I see the lightning bolt.
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready for
You're
it.
ready.
Yeah.
So I'm only going. I don't care about Black Adam. I don't care about the Justice Society. I'm just going to see the post-credit scene. That's all I want to see.
but see, but now, guys, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about just going for that post credit now? That, I mean, is it?
Oh,
No, I want to see the movie too. I'm just
the
joking.
fact that
because
post-credit
like,
scene
it'll be a
exists
thing
is
for me just
probably
wait
gonna.
to see the movie just for that.
It's gonna make it millions of dollars more simply
I know,
because
but
of that.
I wanted to.
I want to see the movie,
What's up,
and
man?
then
Long time no see, buddy. But
I'm
yeah, I just
excited for
want
all
that
of it.
movie to stand on its own as well.
Of
you
course,
know,
of course.
because if this bombs, like
That's
after,
important.
because
Yeah.
if this bombs after the opening week, because everybody's seen the post credit, and everybody has, I think a lot of people have seen it now,
Yeah.
and it doesn't hold up on its own, then Warner Bros. Like, that Snyder verse. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter how cool
Done.
the post-credit scene is if the rest of the movie isn't very good.
Yes.
It's
Marvel.
a problem.
Well, you're gonna. You're gonna see. I have a niece who loves The Rock, and will go see anything he does, no matter how good or bad it is. And I think there's a lot of people like that.
Agreed.
So people are gonna go.
Yeah.
And they're probably gonna like The Rock, and they will like The Rock whether the movie's good or not. But they'll like The Rock. Some people will go because they want to see the post-credit scene, I guess. But that's kind of weird. But I suppose that's the case. But I think a lot of people will be going based on what we said in the DC Watch episode 1, or at least what I said, I think. But, where I think that this Black Adam movie is really starts the setup, and it would surprise me. I know they don't have their Kevin Feige yet, but it would surprise me if they didn't, when they're doing this, they don't set other stuff up as they go along now. It doesn't have to be anything big or critical, but just have pieces of some of the movies that are setting up stuff going in the future. They got 4 movies in the can now. They've done some reshoots, with Cavill and other stuff like that. So start moving stuff forward. And so as a DC fan and seeing the movies, that's one of the things I'm going to look for. I'm going to look for an enjoyable movie. I like Black Adam as a character. I really love the Justice Society. Got a number of members there. Let me see where this is going to go. And what they're going to be looking at. Are they going to be working towards a Superman versus Batman? They're going to be working towards what I think is probably more likely, something maybe like a Black Adam versus the Justice League, or Black Adam, some other stuff like that. I don't know, but to me, that's going to be part of what I'm going to look to be entertained, to see where it's going, and to see that post-credit scene. So I've got 3 things I'm looking for.
I just wanted to say one thing about the post-credit scene, which is I kind of wish I lived in a world where I could go see the movie and not know a week before what the post-credit scene was. That ship has sailed.
Yeah.
For those of us who, I guess, have been forced to embrace that, and you want to find out that information, especially as comic book collectors, it's like if you get that news first, then it helps you get the comics before they pop in value. I would encourage everyone to read Geekosity magazine online by Mikey Sutton. I have found consistently over the 2 years that I've really been aware of it, like, when he reports something, it is on point. And if there's a miss, it's not, it's more, it's presented in a way where, hey, they're toying with this idea. It's not definite. So that he, as a writer, there's a lot of nuance to it as well. But the things that I have heard in advance that are right on point, such as the Cavill end credit scene, I've found out from Geekosity, and I trust that source.
And
and he's
Doug,
Filipino.
one of the things I did was I tried, even though I knew this was going to happen, I didn't listen to it. I don't know what it says. I don't know what's going on with respect to that. You know, I just clicked on the thing to see if it was actually true, and then managed to see his face. And then I said, okay, that's it, because I want to be able to at least get that as I don't know, a surprise or something that I'm going to wait for. And I think that's a problem we have with a lot. And I agree with Geekosity. I think that's really a good site. But that's one of the problems we have when this stuff comes out now. If it's a movie that I really care about, I try to go see it in the first few days. You know,
Yeah.
If I don't care about it too much, like Thor: Love and Thunder, I mean, I still haven't seen it. I mean, then I particularly care because I'm not really paying a lot of attention. I know I'll see it eventually, you know, when it get, you know, on TV or whatever else, when I have a few hours to kill. But that's basically it. But Black Adam, I mean, I want to know a lot about the story. You know, it's all over the place that, you know, there's this end credit scene. So I couldn't escape knowing about it, but I don't want to know what it is. So that's what I'm going to try to.
It's funny. It's funny. There was a time I was watching, I forgot what movie it was, and then suddenly the trailer for Batman Begins came out. I'm like, wait, they're doing a Batman movie? It's like, I knew nothing about it. And I was so surprised. I was like, girlfriend at the time was like, what happened? What's going on?
Why are you screaming?
Yeah, it's like, who am I with? But yeah, there was a time when the trailers told us what's coming out. I mean, I read the calendar section of my newspaper because that's where the comics were. But and then I would, you know, catch like, you know, snippets of like movie news and maybe Entertainment Tonight. But yeah, there was a time when we didn't know anything until they announced it in the theaters. And I do remember those times.
Well, even Batman '89, I remember going with my friend, my my wife and his wife. We met down in the Village to go to a movie theater to see it, and we were all excited about it. And we really didn't know too much about it until we saw the movie. That was it. So,
I remember reading about it in the paper that they were going to do it, and I was so excited. Yeah. You know, so even if you got like some of those hints, it just wasn't the same as it is now. I mean, we're getting shots of people in their costumes, footage, breaking reports months in advance. Like Lenny, I think you've mentioned this. You told us months ago that Cavill was a done deal. Like he was back.
Yeah, anytime you hear anything in the news, that means it was done months ago. But I was like, man, The Rock's really pushing Superman. Like he wouldn't push Superman unless he knew he could deliver.
He's gonna deliver. Yeah.
But you know, being the showman that The Rock is, you know, from wrestling and whatnot.
And that's another reason I hope this movie's good. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can't think of a truly iconic role for The Rock. And that may be on me, and maybe there are, and I'm just missing them. But like Arnold, the Terminator, Predator, he's got those roles. You know, and I don't see that with The Rock, and I'm hopeful that this is that for him.
Wait. I think The Rock would have been an awesome Shazam or Captain Marvel.
Interesting.
Like he is the epitome of like human, you know, like Greek, you know, like he was like The Rock was like he was chiseled out of marble, you know.
I hear what you're saying.
I think, and being a wrestler, I think Billy Batson would have looked up to him as the epitome of the male figure, you know, like not just the muscles, but you know, like the deep voice. But I think it would have been a great Captain Marvel.
Interesting. Yeah, no, well, he's the player on the other side for that character, so pretty close. I should love Zach Levi.
Zaslav. Hold on, I'm gonna call Zaslav real quick. Hold on.
Hey Joe, you have a shout out in the chat, Uncle Joe, Wombat Baron. There you go.
Oh, it's Jack. Hey Jack, how you doing?
Oh.
Yeah, that's Jacqueline. That's my niece. How you doing?
Hey.
So listen, she is the Rock fan I was talking about.
Awesome.
Right, Jack? You would see any Rock movie no matter what. So I'm going Thursday to see Black Adam. So if you go to watch it, you know, text me, let me know what you think, you know, when you get to see it.
Joe, if you're up for coming out to Jersey, we'll go together.
Joe, what's your niece's name again?
Jacqueline.
My wife got to work with The Rock. She worked on the movie Rampage. Have you seen that movie? Yeah,
Oh,
she
cool.
did she was on the set with the visual effects. And when it was The Rock's birthday, she invited her to his party. And like she didn't, I mean, he didn't have to, but he's so nice to everybody that he works with that,
Yeah.
I love
So-
hearing
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, so
And you
that's
only hear good
fantastic.
things about him. So I really
Yeah.
want this to be a success. Because look, he has been talking about how he's been working towards this film for 15 years. 15 years predates the release of the MCU.
Yeah.
So like this has been a labor of love for him. I mean, it's been a long journey. I hope this movie's great. I hope it's the destination is worthy of the remarkable journey he's taken
Yeah.
over the last decade.
And it will be.
Yeah.
I
So-
guarantee it.
So enjoy the movie. Because the Rock's like one of the sweetest guys.
All
so-
right. So
That's awesome.
All right, so we're a little bit past the 30 minutes. We wanted to keep it to 30 because our first show, and Jacqueline, if you haven't seen the first show, you got to go see it because that's what we're talking about. It's our first DC watch, and we talk a little bit about predictions we actually made about 30 days ago with respect to Cavill and why he's important.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys, for showing up. I think it was a good discussion, good like after show discussion. We do have another show that we recorded, I think, a month and a half ago. I'm not sure we're going to show that.
We'll see. We may have to do another one.
So I think that
Editing takes a while,
Joe,
guys. Editing
Joe.
takes a while. All right.
we might need to do some reshoots.
Joe,
Took
can
me
I
like-
can I say one last thing
Sure,
before
sure.
you close it up?
Sure.
I just want to this was a collaboration, and I really want to thank Lenny Pretty Fly for the awesome work he did. I thought this looked really great. The opening,
did a great job.
The opening credits are phenomenal,
Well,
and
you
just
guys
the
helped make it
visuals.
great.
I really thought he did a great job behind the scenes, and I want to make sure he
Fantastic.
gets the props for
Thank
that.
you.
And I did nothing. I'm just here for the after party.
That is
so.
Yeah,
true.
yeah, Doug. Like you and Reggie are
Doug
the only
did
guys who can
jack.
collaborate, all right? You and Reggie are the only ones who have secret.
Exactly.
projects.
That's right.
You know,
No, definitely
we're
not.
coming-
Joe's
we're coming up
Joe's
with-
a big collaborator.
We're coming
Well,
up with our
listen,
own comic.
I was the one who put together the questions
inclusion.
and stuff like that. And we had a lot more. And I actually did a treatise for 4 different shows.
Well, the
So
first
whole thing got together.
that
and then
20-minute show, yeah, it was a
Right, then
45-minute conversation.
We had about 45 minutes of content
Yeah.
for that show. And then Lenny puts it all together. Then he says to me, Joe, I want Bruno to do this skit. He's got to do this and all of that, So I'm there trying to set up my camera and the lights.
Well, you know,
And
it's
he gives me
Hollywood
some
West
stuff
guys.
to kind of say,
That's
just generally. It was almost like the Marvel method, where Lee would say, hey, this is what the story's about and so forth. Go draw it. So that's kind of what he did with me. So I just sat down there and I just made up something.
Riffed, yeah.
And
Okay.
Lenny made it into gold. He made it
Thank
into
you.
gold. So
Too kind. But can I say it? Some parting words myself? Like,
sure.
I mean, yeah, we did dedicate this to Chris Berger, but I also,
Chris.
and because Chris is like the fourth Trinity, as I like to call him, fourth member of the Trinity. But I do commemorate this show to the Gibbon Gang, and Reggie, of course, because he brought the Gibbon Gang together. And like if not for the Gibbon Gang and Reggie, we wouldn't meet. We wouldn't know each other. I'd be twiddling my thumbs during the pandemic if it weren't for you guys. So the hard work that we put in goes to the Gibbon Gang. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, Seth, I saw your comment. Isolation 2 has been lettered, edited, and is on to pre-production. So coming soon, Isolation number 2.
it always has to go back to isolation. Oh.
I had to.
Can we do 2, 3, and 4 at one time? Come on. You got to find a sugar daddy, to do this, because I can't take these 20 some odd pages and then I want more all the time.
You, Reggie, and I will talk off camera then.
I'm sorry. My wife is still here.
We need an investor. Tell your wife to go to bed.
All right, guys. So this is great. Thanks to everybody that showed up to watch our
Thank you.
after
Thank
show
you.
party, whatever you want to call this thing. And if you didn't see DC Watch episode 1 from the very beginning, because I know some people came in late, please go ahead and watch it because I think the beginning is pretty damn cool. It's pretty damn cool. Thanks to Pretty Fly.
No,
All right,
to
guys. So
everybody.
we'll see you soon, I guess. A couple of things coming up. At least I will be having, I think, the next episode of my Battle of the Comic Book Values between DC and Marvel. I think I'm up to 1965, if I remember. So 65 is going to be coming out this week. I had a friend of mine. I got to see my best friend John finally. His son got married last week. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I told him, you got to come on the channel. So I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But one of the things we talked about was Neil Adams. Obviously, we're talking comics at his son's wedding, right? We went outside and we talked. So we talked about Neil Adams, and some other type of thing. So someone had asked me about, what do I think of the best Neil Adams comic covers for Batman? So I put together a video on that.
Nice.
And the thought came to my mind that there's some other great Batman artists as well. So I might do that into a series if it looks like it might work out. So that's going to come out in a couple of weeks too. So just so you're aware of that. And we need some action figure comedy coming up. You got the Black Adam movie coming out. That should be, fuel some fodder for some stuff, Dave.
Our skit was basically action figure comedy.
It was.
He brought his action figure comedy stylings to it, so. But Joe, maybe a review of Black Adam in the future?
Well, maybe you guys want to get together. If we watch it, we can give that a shot.
I got my tickets.
Everything's got to be before November. All right, before I go on my cruise with my lovely wife. So,
Gotcha.
All right, guys. So we'll say goodnight, and thanks again for everybody for showing up.
Thank you.
Thanks to Doug for joining the three of us and contributing and listening to what we have to say. Really appreciate it, Doug. Anytime you're on, you bring class to the show.
Thanks for letting me crash your party.
Oh, anytime for you. All right, guys, everybody, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.